Welcome to Anderson Speaks. I'm Dick Murgatroyd, and on this edition of Anderson Speaks, we'll be talking with Father Rufino about the Comboni's annual nativity experience, Frank Loomis with some interesting information about antiques, and we'll talk to Janet McLaughlin from Provident Travel with some travel tips for our Christmas travelers. So we hope that you'll stay with us as we meet our first guest, and I want to tell you a little bit about him before we actually meet him. Father Rufino Azima is a Ugandan Comboni missionary, I'll get that right, who was ordained a priest in 1994. In 1996, he served in the parish of St. Francis of Assisi in the Archdiocese of Cotonou in the Republic of Benin, a country which is about 24% Christian and over 60% belonging to the traditional religion Voodoo. He worked in the pastoral activities of this large parish, and then in 2001 and 2002, Father Rufino worked in Ludanga Basilica Parish, a parish of about 90% Muslims in Arua Diocese in Uganda, as assistant pastor. He was the provincial vocation promoter of the Comboni missionaries in Uganda province from 2004 to 2008. He is now a member of the North American province and director of vocation promotion from our provincial house here in Cincinnati, Ohio, and it's with great pleasure that I welcome Father Rufino, and I hope I didn't butcher those names too badly.
You did very well.
Did I do all right?
Very well.
It's nice to have you with us. What an interesting background, and I think the one thing that appeals to me, is interesting to me, is that this is your first assignment in the States, yes. In the United States, and you came here in 2009. Tell me a little bit about that experience and about your background.
Yeah, I had never come to the United States before. We do have some others who come during summer for some mission experience, preaching appeals, giving a hand. But after I finished working as the vocation promoter in Uganda, and then they told me, okay, you are going to the United States. So the superiors just decided it, and I said, okay, I come. And when I arrived, I found a very nice place and beautiful people.
Well, they are, very much so. Now, you are, as we were talking earlier, basically your assignments, you have no idea how long you will be in any one place. They move you whenever they feel there's a need for you somewhere else, but most of your background, most of your early years were in Uganda, which is your home. Is that true?
Yeah, that's my home diocese from where I come. But then also as a student, I went and studied theology in Italy, in Rome, which I did for 5 years. So with our preparation, you always have to be ready to go and serve where there is need. So the superiors identify the need and they send you there.
Are you signed up for any period of time that you'll serve as far as your whole career is concerned, or you're there for a lifetime?
Normally it's a couple of years, and if they still need you in the place longer, the superiors will keep you. If they think that you can give a hand, serve in another place, they will always decide. So with our background of the vow of obedience, wherever they assign you, you just go. So and the interesting thing is, wherever you go, you find that God has prepared a family that welcomes you, and you feel part of the people.
Absolutely.
And it helps us in building the one family.
Absolutely. Well, you seem very happy, and you seem to have adjusted quite well. You've been here 3 years, I guess, or
yes.
Close to 3 years. So hopefully you'll be able to stay here a little while longer, and
hopefully,
and stay and enjoy this great area.
Yeah.
But as you said, you're ready to go whenever they decide that your mission is somewhere else. So.
Exactly.
Well, God bless you. That's terrific. It really
Thank
is.
you.
We're here to talk a little bit today about the nativity experience, and so I understand that is going to be coming soon. It'll be starting soon. And it's the 65th year that this display has been shown here in this area. Tell us a little bit about the nativity experience.
Yeah, this nativity experience, first of all, is in the house where I reside, that is 1318 Nagle Road, just off Beachmont Avenue. As you did mention, it started 65 years ago. We have this room-size nativity display, which every year the experience is there. It has animated parts and also accompanied with music. So the beauty of it all is when children come, they really enjoy seeing, the movements of the little, maybe the people or many of these other things which are put together to give life, to this nativity display. So that's what it started off with, and we've been going on for 65 years now.
So what was the origination of putting this together?
Yeah, the origination is that we started, getting students who would come from Italy, and they would study theology at Mount St. Mary's Seminary of the West, like today, which is the Athenaeum. So those who came from Italy, they came with a rich tradition. And this is the tradition of the crib. So personally for me, with my first name being Rufino, Rufino was one of the first disciples of St. Francis of Assisi. So in Italy, this tradition has been a long tradition, started, by St. Francis of Assisi himself. And what happens is he started by recreating, a nativity scene with some statues which represent, let's say, the Holy Family, the angels, the shepherds, the kings who came from the east, in order to do homage to the child Jesus. And then this was put in a landscape of Palestine, for instance. So when they came here, these seminarians, they felt far from home, but they needed also to recreate this so that it helps them in living the faith, not only them as seminarians, but also with the people, with whom they were interacting. So they began going to collect, they got busy collecting stones, moss from the nearby creeks, and then putting everything together to recreate this. And they populated the landscape, with hand-carved statues. And then later they added music to this representation. And they also did add some mechanical movement. So this mechanical movement several times is the one which also interests the children. They are listening to the sound of what is being narrated, and then they are seeing these other movements. So in all, you really come to find that it is something which is sending a message across. And when they started it, there would be people who would line up for hours to wait for their turn to go just to watch this 10, 15 minutes representation. And you can't really imagine the faith of these people too, where for something of 15 to 20 minutes, you are there waiting for 1 hour, 2 hours during winter with the cold.
Oh, yeah.
So that really showed the interest it started. Then, as it kept growing, started with the arrival of the students in 1947, but then as time went on, many schools got interested in bringing the children to come and see this. So you'll find that there were buses bringing the children to come and see what is really taking place. So in the greater Cincinnati area, then it became a historical tradition which we have been keeping every year ever since.
Long, long time. And so if I understand it correctly, people do come in and they actually see a set program. So and then they leave and another group can come in. So that's how it works.
Yeah, that's how it
isn't something you just walk through and look at,
No.
but there's actually a presentation that's
There's a
connected with it.
presentation.
And this is over the years, I guess. Do you add anything new to the display each year, or does it
Now,
stay pretty much the same?
for this year, 2012, as we mark the 65th anniversary, we have tried to add some other things also. That's why the presentation this year will be a bit special for us in the sense that for the first time we are going to digitalize it. So we have been using, cassettes and the rest. So moving from the use of cassettes, sometimes pressing the buttons and maybe the cassette could get stuck and all that. So for the first time, we are digitalizing it. So that will be a new element to which we are having for the 2012. And the other part which is also new for this year is that we have a narration in Spanish for the Spanish speakers. So it has all along been in English. So this time, those who are of Hispanic background and who cannot understand English very well will get the occasion to listen to this narration in Spanish.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Do people need to make an appointment to come, or can they just come at will and then just stand in line and then take their turn at going through?
There is no appointment. The parking is free, and when they come, what happens is they can wait a bit. Now, what happens is all along these years also, we have been introducing some other elements. For instance, we have the Mission Museum, which is a museum with artifacts from the missions where the Comboni missionaries are working or have worked. So those missionaries, whenever they would come back home, they came with some of these important artifacts. So today, many children from schools do come to see this museum because it helps them to see some of the things they are learning in school and they don't have the possibility of seeing. So during this occasion, we also open the Mission Museum and we offer tours to those who would like to know and understand, the life of the people from where these objects are coming. So when these people come, they are waiting for their turn to go in. They have this possibility of going through our museum. And then we have also the boutique. There is a group of the ladies auxiliaries, and what happens is people do bring some of the things which they don't need at home. Instead of throwing them away, they bring, and these ladies sort them out. So they offer also to kids the possibility of getting some little presents to give to their loved ones during Christmas. So that one is also available to the public. And since 3 years, this will be the 4th year, we have also a room which is with handmade nativity sets from around the world.
Oh my goodness.
We have from over 30 countries, and especially from the countries where the Comboni missionaries are working. So every year, since there is this tradition of, getting missionaries coming from the missions, they come with some of these handmade nativity sets. So as to let you also see the possibility of culturally, how do these people represent the life of baby Jesus and all these other statues. Not maybe the Italian way, but how do they share it with the others? So in this room also, we do have the expression of Merry Christmas in so many languages, because we missionaries work in different cultural setups. So we share that also with the people. So before they go to the room size nativity display, there is this possibility for them to make the tour and interact with the missionaries who are present.
Oh, interesting. What a great experience. Before we run out of time, because I am getting close here, but tell me a little bit about what the missionaries, the Comboni missionaries do and in this area.
Yeah, the Comboni missionaries are here in Cincinnati from 1939. And we are present in Anderson Township from 1947. So we have grown together, with Anderson Township, and some of our elderly missionaries, like people people like Father Mario. In the house we have Father Joe Bragotti. He's 50 years old as a priest. So they always told me they have seen a lot of changes here. At first, where we are now was called the Sacred Heart Seminary. So before, Comboni is the name of our founders, and Daniel Comboni. So today we are being called the Comboni Missionaries. But then at one time, the people knew our place as the Sacred Heart Seminary. Others knew it as the place of the Verona Fathers. So today we have the services for the whole province of North America with communities within Cincinnati. We have a presence among the Hispanics at St. Charles Borromeo. And then we have other communities in Los Angeles, in the Archdiocese of Newark. We have a presence in a parish in Kitchener, Ontario in Canada. We have a mission animation and a parish in Chicago. So all this is where we try to share that missionary call, where we need to share the experiences of how God would like the good news to reach everywhere among all peoples. So our place here serves as the headquarters, but we also offer mission promotion activities, and we also have development, office in order to help us to see what we can do to share with those who are in the missions or within the other communities. So there is a lot of activity going on. Every year in August we have the Taste of Mission, where we offer to people great food, dances, and the rest from many parts of the world so that they can come and share and really see what it is like and interact with people who come from the various parts of the world too.
How many are assigned here at this particular mission?
Here in Anderson Township, we're about 6, and we have also 2 seminarians who live with us, and they go over for studies at the Athenaeum.
Tell me again where it's located.
It's 1318 Nagle Road, as I said, off Beachmont Avenue, behind the post office.
Oh,
Many
okay.
people maybe know the post office,
That's
but
right.
then we are just there behind.
The experience opens, I understand, on what day? Opening the 16th?
It opens on December 16th at 4. And we shall be having live music, there will be refreshments, we have raffles and much more really to help us live the 65 years. With banners, you have the possibility of meeting great people, who participate in the work of our missions.
And the hours when it will be available to the public?
The opening starts from 4, but the other times it will be from 6 to 9. And we do this from 16th of December up to December 30th. But then in January, we remain open, especially by appointment, like schools and especially for schools, we leave it open when they can come.
Is that 7 days a week that you're open?
Yes.
Okay, so we must, I know people should really make it a point to see this. It sounds like...
We are longing to see everyone come
Absolutely.
and share this moment with us. As I say, it's free admission and there is place to park. We look forward to seeing you.
We look forward to it also, and we thank you for joining us and appreciate you being with us and sharing this information, learning but not only about the Nativity experience, but about the Comboni ministries and missionaries. So, and again, that will be open December 17th. 16th actually is the opening, and it goes through the 30th of December, and then after that in January by appointment. So we will hope that a lot of folks will come and see it this year. Thank you for being here.
You're welcome. Thanks really for meeting you people.
Nice to meet
and
you.
making
Really
our
a pleasure.
Anderson Township be a welcoming community. Thank you.
It is definitely that. Well, we will meet Frank Loomis and talk about antiques on Anderson Speaks right after this message. So please stay with us. And welcome back to Anderson Speaks. Our next guest is Frank Farmer Loomis, who is an author, a radio talk show host at WMKV, a full-time antique art appraiser, and he also advises me that he is a lover of dogs. Frank, it's great to have you with us.
You know what I would like to do, Dick?
What's
in
that?
homage to the Bob Brown Show, I'd like to stand up and shake your hand.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
Remember the old days?
I certainly do.
Let's take it a higher level than third grade, though.
Yeah. That takes me back for sure. Some of my best times, though, I must say.
Mr. Lincoln had just been elected president.
Yeah, I think so. So, Frank, you are, we're going to talk about antiques, I guess. And I guess I would start by asking you, how do you define an antique? I mean,
that's a wonderful question, Dick. And when I used to be on the Bob Brown Show, when you were on too, it defined it totally differently than now. Now I don't care. I just use the word vintage. Because with the young people collecting things, something 20 or 30 years old, to them is an antique. So I just have sort of tossed aside all those definitions. In my first two books, I defined what an antique was, blah, 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 before 1820, 1900. Now I don't care anymore. Just call it vintage, everybody, and you'll be safe.
Yeah, because it's, I guess, and they become antiques pretty quickly anymore, it seems like.
Right, and it's the 21st century. My God, here we are 12 years into well, actually 11, I guess, into the 21st century. And I don't worry about that definition anymore.
Yeah. Do people still collect a lot of antiques as much as they used to? I mean, at one time, there were people that were avid, collectors. Is that kind of waned, or is it... As the younger people now, are they starting to get interested in?
I think that's a wonderful question that you've asked. And a lot of antique dealers that are in their 50s and 60s are saying that antiques have sort of waned in popularity. I don't think that, and of course through the years, like in the 1880s, they became popular, in 1920s, and then they sort of went down and came back. I think now that the young people are collecting vintage items, what people in their 50s and 60s don't consider to be antique. So I think they are collecting it. They like things from the 1970s and 80s and things like that.
Which is more like memorabilia almost for
right.
some. For
but
some.
Not, like my nephew who's 34, something from the 1970s or the 1980s is to him exactly what something to me was when I started collecting from the 1920s or the 1910s.
Yes.
So I think it's all relative. And I remember way back when I was doing a TV series on CET called Is It Antique Yet? I had defined antiques probably about something 100 years old or something. And there was a doyenne in Cincinnati who considered herself the doyenne of antiques. And she just raised havoc with my definition. And I was, that was way back when. And I decided way back then that I would change with the times with the definition. And I think it's a good idea to change the times with the definition.
Is Cincinnati a pretty good area as far as being a collector or looking for antiques?
Wonderful area. Wonderful area.
And what makes it that way?
I think what makes it that way is a good question. Cincinnati goes back to 1788, and since day one, Cincinnati, wonderful city, has had a great appreciation of the arts, and we had all the great artists and great cabinet makers, wonderful furniture makers, the great artists. We had Rookwood pottery, Holman silver, Flag and Holman pewter and everything. So I think there's always been an awareness of what they call fine arts and decorative arts. And I think that's just gone through the years. It's a very rich art.
Is there one era that tends to be more popular with collectors than another?
That's a good question. Is there one era that's more popular than others with collectors? That's a good question. I'm thinking. I know you could say, Dick, that the golden era of Cincinnati was probably, for arts and stuff, was like 1900, 1910, because that's when Rookwood was full force. I would probably say no. I think that people here collect all the different aspects, and depending upon their budget. But you've got furniture from 1840 all the way to the 1940s. So I think there's a wide range. But I will say this: that people in Cincinnati really, really, really identify with things that were crafted and created right here in Cincinnati.
Is that right? I mean, so they look for those things that were original from here.
When I first moved here to go to graduate school a million years ago, the first thing that amazed me about Cincinnati was how natives here, and I quite understand, how they absolutely love their city, which is wonderful,
yes.
because other places aren't that way. Now, after all these years here, and I'll still be an outsider, because I was born in Chicago. Where were you born?
I was born in Columbus, Ohio.
Well, we love Columbus. That's a great town. So I call myself a Shinatian. The other thing I could say that I don't know if other cities are this way, because I spent most of my life here, but one of the things that I think defines Cincinnati is that people tend oftentimes to live on the same street that they grew up
Absolutely.
in. I don't know, are other cities, is Columbus that way?
No,
I don't know.
I don't think so. I found that when I first came here. I was amazed because generation after generation after generation lives here.
Yep.
And they never go very far from where they started. I mean, if their great grandparents lived in an area or on a street, 9 times out of 10 they all live within some close proximity to that area, and it just, I guess, amazed me. In fact, when I first came here, I thought everybody was related.
Well, right, I understand. But no, you're right. Like on my street, it's the same way. One of my dear neighbors lives just down from where she grew up. Another neighbor lives in her grandmother's house. And I think that all ties in that Cincinnatians, and I mean the whole area, the
Yes.
tri-state area,
it does,
have a respect for the past. And we go on and on about how many wonderful old buildings have been destroyed in Cincinnati, which of course is true. But then at the same time, we have the highest concentration of buildings from the 1800s
Yes.
and the over the Rhine and everything like that. So I think that all ties in with a love of antiques and old things like that. And I like your question. I really think, again, answering it, I think that they all different areas. It's as long as it's Cincinnati, they love it most of all.
Is there a particular? I mean, when someone's looking. I mean, I guess you find them everywhere. I mean, there's no particular area that is known for a place where people go to look for antiques. They kind of find them wherever they go.
Well, they go to a lot of the local antiques malls, and then in the summertime there's a very fine outdoor antiques market, which is very dear to my heart. It's called the Burlington Antique Show, and it's in Burlington, Kentucky at the fairgrounds.
Oh yes, yeah.
And it's the third Sunday from April through October. And I think that is, I don't think I know, that's really a popular place. And you know how you were asking me about Cincinnati for collecting antiques? A few years ago, this is a true story. I went, maybe it was 10 years ago, I went up to Springfield, Ohio. There's a huge outdoor antique show there. It's like a 3-day affair. And it can be really wonderful. Well, a dealer, antiques dealer from California, rented a car and drove to Springfield. And she flew and drove and got a car, rented a car in Springfield. And she was very disappointed in it. And it was the same weekend as Burlington. Because, sometimes it's hit or miss. That can be a good show. So they said, you need to go to Burlington on Sunday. So she took her car and went to Burlington. She ended up having to rent a truck to bring everything back from California. Now, that was a while ago, but maybe 10 years ago or something. But it just sort of illustrates,
Are there parts of the country where there are kind of pockets where they're known for antique collectors, where people would go specifically because of the collection of antiques?
I think that a lot of people would go to New England to the Brimfield Antiques Market. But, these are revolutionary times, and I think everything is changing, and people are buying more and more on the Internet, auctions
Yes.
on the Internet, and, it's always better to go see the item in person. But so I think all of this is changing, but more and more people are buying on the Internet, which opens up I know as an appraiser, I do my research, on the Internet, and it just opens up the whole world for me for references, and it opens up the whole world for you for buying things. And of course, eBay has had a tremendous impact too.
Well, also for selling, I guess, if people want to
For selling, yes.
sell
Although
antiques.
this is a much better time these days to buy than sell.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
like real estate.
Well, I guess the thing would be looking at it on the Internet. I mean, are you able to really determine the quality and of the piece enough to when you buy it to know you're getting what you're paying for, or not?
I think it's a wonderful question, and when you buy on some of these, internet auctions, you are taking a chance. So you should really, if you're doing that, you should buy something that's definitely what it is if you notice it, because you're taking a chance. But if you go to a reputable auction house like, say, Skinner's in Boston, all the other ones, they have these great descriptions, and Pook and Pook, they have these great descriptions on that. You can call up and say, blah, 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 But two things, Dick. If you're buying on the internet and you're buying at an auction, always check two things. Number one, there's usually a buyer's premium. So if you paid $100 for something, they might have a buyer's premium of 18 to 25%. So that's another $18 to $25. Also, check out what the shipping can be beforehand, because that can be really expensive.
Really expensive, yeah.
But I have one word for you on shipping: Greyhound.
Really?
They do a great job, and it's very reasonable, yeah.
Oh my gosh.
The snobs don't like that. They say, oh, Greyhound, that's a bus, but keep that in mind.
But they do ship pieces of furniture.
Do you collect antiques?
No, I don't.
What's the problem? What's the problem?
I guess I should get into that. In fact, it's interesting because I grew up in Columbus in a home that was my dad had converted into a funeral home, but it was originally a home owned by it was a mansion of sorts, and it was filled with antique furniture, and the woodwork in the home was all cherry and walnut and beautiful and big tall ceilings, and so we had a lot of antique furniture throughout that was there when we bought it. This went back into the, I guess, in the 40s, I guess, or 30s and 40s. And so I was around it a lot. And in fact, there was an attic that we never used that was filled with all the leftover antiques.
My heart bleeds for you.
And when we sold it, I remember that there were a lot of collectors, I assume, came and bought a lot of that stuff because it had never been touched and it was original. I mean, a lot of original stuff.
I'm trying to think. Would that have been South High Street or Broad Street?
We were on. We were off of High Street on Park Street and Park and Hubbard, right in kind of the north side of Cincinnati, north end of Columbus, and he had that place for a long time till we moved to Cambridge, Ohio. So, but it was a beautiful, beautiful old. And unfortunately, they tore it down. I went up there not too long ago, and
Columbus, it reminds me a lot of Chicago because it's so progressive and it has that spirit.
Yeah, very much so now, more than it was when we lived there.
And it has that, and they have a wonderful art museum there.
Yes.
And about, let me think, 6 or 7 years ago, the Columbus Museum of Art had an exhibition of Renoir paintings. That was an incredible exhibition.
That was a traveling exhibition.
It was in the fall of '05.
Are there some local museums here where people can?
Oh, we got great ones here. The Cincinnati
antiques.
Museum of Art, it's great. The Taft Museum of Art is magnificent. I'm trying to think of tons of them. Cincinnati Historical Society. Just to walk into Union Terminal is walking into an Art Deco museum. And walk downtown into the Carew Tower and the Netherland Plaza Hotel, the Hilton there. That is living, and walking around and seeing Tyler Davison Fountain. That is really something. There's a story. Do you have time to hear this story?
Yeah, we do.
When Tyler Davison Fountain was, my name's going blank, the man who bought it, but he bought it in memorial to Tyler Davison. And he was in Germany and bought, and he bought it as he saw it as a miniature, and then it was shipped later full size, and you can see that in the Cincinnati wing of the art museum. They had the model of that. Anyway, he was so wealthy. This was in the late 1870s. He was very, very wealthy, and there was this French artist by the name of Ernest Messonnier, Messonnier, and they have a painting at the Taft Museum of Art by this gentleman. And he was at the height of his career, and at the Taft they have this little small one, sort of looking like the Three Musketeers. Mm-hmm. So he was the most famous artist of them all. And this gentleman from Cincinnati was going all over, And the rumor was that he was going to buy this painting for Miss Saunier for $100,000
Gosh.
back in the 1870s. And
Wow.
he didn't buy it. And what happened was the Impressionists became very popular at that time. And so he was realistic. And so he fell from
I'll be
favor.
darned.
And he has never, ever really, Miss Saunier, ever come back. So, like the last time I was in France, I was talking to an art gallery owner, and she said, Madame Riva, she said, nope, he's still a good buy. So if you buy what's not fashionable, you get more for your money.
I'll be darned. You brought something with you today.
I
just
did.
was going to ask you about that.
Well, let me ask you a question. That's a beautiful tie. That's a Christmas motif?
Yes, it is.
How appropriate. And here we are all set up for Christmas. I think that Christmas is one of the most wonderful times to bring out family pieces and, and this little Christmas ornament from the 1950s, to me, sums up the joy of collecting. Like the Chinese say, feng shui has these great vibrations and everything like that. Well, this comes with great vibrations of people who collected it and put it on a Christmas tree. And I like this too because I don't care how old this is. I would say it's probably from the 1960s or 50s. We can call it vintage if you want. But it comes with great vibes and it reflects the light beautifully. The other thing that's wonderful about it is that it's very affordable. So if you want to go and give somebody a gift, everybody, for Christmas, that will be a guarantee hit. Go get a vintage Christmas ornament. I've really paid a lot of money. I'm trying to think. 2 years ago, I paid a small fortune for one, Dick. I got 3 of them for $1.
Oh, my goodness sakes.
And they were even in a Christmas bag for it. I bought it in an antique small. I didn't even negotiate for price. But you give one of those, and it's creating, an heirloom, and people will remember you and everything. But that's why I brought that, because I think, and I love it too, because it's slightly tattered looking.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
Some people would say beaten up, but it looks old in a beautiful way. And I guess I'm going to have to put up a tree this year.
You're going to have to.
And, the Taft Museum of Art always has a wonderful display of
Yes.
Christmas antiques that starts right after Thanksgiving, and that's always a great place
And I
to
think
go.
people now are I remember when I grew up, the ornaments on the tree had some meaning because they were, from grandparents and,
Right.
and from people who brought ornaments as a gift or whatever. And every year that was a big tradition to hang those ornaments.
Right.
And I think people kind of got away from that. We got into the artificial trees and already, decorated. But I think people are starting to come back to collecting or those having ornaments that are meaningful. As children grow up, they can, when they decorate that tree, there's a lot of memories that go with it. And that to me is the really beauty of a Christmas tree are those memories that you.
And you're absolutely right. But when I was growing up, I had a wonderful Aunt Panny, and she was the one that I got into antiquing with. And she said, Frankie, everybody to their own taste, said the little old lady who kissed the cow. Now, I love and agree with everything you said about that, but there's a whole other side to that if you're 25 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And the one word is, everybody, aluminum.
Yeah.
Aluminum trees.
I was gonna-
Now, you had that beautiful tree. We had the aluminum tree with
dear.
pink and blue ornaments and the lights, And but I've made a lot of progress. My sister and I are both still in therapy about this. But no, you watch that, and that's an expensive antique. Now, I like your side better, but it's all subjective. Everybody
Yeah,
to
it
their
is.
own taste,
It
said the
is.
little old
It
lady who
is.
kissed
Well,
the cow.
because I think too that, I still one of those people who love fresh trees versus
yes.
artificial trees. But the aluminum trees have become an antique. I don't see many of them anymore. So
They've gotten pricey.
but you at least have one.
No,
you don't?
No,
Oh, you
no.
don't?
I have an old-fashioned reproduction of a feather tree that was made out of goose feathers, and mine's from the 1950s, and I have that because my grandmother bought me one when I was a child. Now, that's not the one, but it's the same vintage. But, I was saying to my nephew, why don't you get an artificial tree? And he says, oh, no, I'm a green man. I want to save nature and have a real tree. I said, the artificial trees are what saved the real trees, and
That's true.
That's how they got invented
Yes.
in Germany in the late 1800s. The Kaiser was upset about the pine trees being cut down.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate your being here.
It's
I've
been
just
great fun.
enjoyed it,
Thank you.
and I still could talk a lot longer, so we'll have to get you back there.
Well, it was
but
great
it's nice
fun.
to see you again, and
Shall we shake hands for
and we
old
shall
time's
shake
sake?
hands for old time's sake.
Bye now.
Frank,
Thank you.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Appreciate it. Well, we thank you, Frank, for sharing with us your expertise on antiques and on this edition of Anderson Speaks. When we come back, Janet McLaughlin, Senior Travel Consultant from Provident Travel, will be with us and talk a little bit about some of the ideas for Christmas travel. So please stay with us. We'll be back right after this brief message. And welcome back to Anderson Speaks. Our next guest is Janet McLaughlin. She's a senior travel agent with Provident Travel Corporation. She's been working professionally in the travel industry for 23 years. She lived in the south of France, also in Italy, and including Rome and Venice, and has a master's degree from the University of Rome. Throughout the years, Janet has had various positions in the travel industry, including travel school educator, a tour escort, and travel consultant, and has traveled around the world. Janet has been with Provident Travel, which is the oldest travel agency, by the way, in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the greater Cincinnati, I should say, for the past 18 years, and she works in the Hyde Park Plaza office. She was recently honored to be on the A-list in Travel and Leisure magazine's top 125 travel agents in the nation. She's the only one in the tri-state area to receive this designation. So it's my pleasure to say hello to you again from many years ago. Janet McLaughlin, congratulations. Quite an accomplishment.
Thank you very much, Merg. Thank you for having me back on the show, and it's so great to see you after all these years.
It is great to see you, and you've been selected, what, 5 years for that?
It's been an honor to be part of Travel and Leisure's A-list, and it was something that was bestowed upon me by the magazine, and unbeknownst to me, they got my name from a questionnaire that they sent out to the readership. And so that's how they found me.
Says a lot.
So it's been a pleasure.
It is quite an accomplishment.
Being affiliated with them.
It sure is. Yeah, yeah. You're kind of you're a vintage travel agency. You know, for a while, travel agents kind of disappeared, with the exception of a few of the larger agencies. And then they've started now. I think are people beginning to use travel agents again for their travel plans?
Oh, absolutely, and they have been for quite a while. I think what happened back in the mid-1990s was the age of the internet.
Yes.
And it was something new, and everyone wanted to get onto the internet, and it's such a great source of information. But I think what's happened since that time, we've had September 11th.
Yes.
And we've had a lot of changes in how we access information. A lot of .com companies out there. And you know, what sets a professional travel consultant, travel agency apart from these .coms is that we have that been-to expertise. So it's one thing for you to look at a property, a resort on the internet, and it can look great. But unless you actually know for sure, and I think what has happened through the years, people have been burned, they've been disappointed, and so there has been a total resurgence with people coming to the travel agency. So when I hear sometimes, oh, the travel agent, the travel consultant, they're no longer around, they are. They are, and there's new blood coming into the business as well. A lot of young people are embracing the travel industry network.
Well, I'm happy to hear that, because, you know, I was in the business for about, I guess, 10 years
Yes.
or so. And I was in just kind of between, in that little period where about middle 80s into the 90s. And of course, as you said, the internet took over and everybody thought it's much easier, you know, but it is, I think you're right. I think there's nothing replaces the experience of an agent who's been there for the most part, because I know we used to do, I don't know if they still do the fam trips as they used to call them, but we used to go and look at properties, especially if we sold a product. A lot of it, we would go and make sure we saw it, because you're right. The pictures you see sometimes on the internet is when the place was built, which could have been 20 years ago, and haven't touched it since then. So
Exactly.
good for you. Now, today, is it changed in that, is there a fee now that you have to charge when you do service for a client over and above what used to be, where the entity we sold paid a commission?
Well, yes, and I think the whole business of travel has changed. And when it comes to someone coming to the agency wanting to purchase an escorted tour or take a cruise, no, we do not charge for that service. However, if someone is coming to the agency, to me in particular, or to one of the other consultants, wanting their expertise with planning a customized trip. Maybe it is a private car and driver custom trip to Italy, a safari to South Africa. That takes a lot of work on our end, a lot of expertise, a lot of time involved in something like that. So yes, there is a fee for that service.
But it's worth it to someone, to have someone doing that legwork for them.
Absolutely. And also, too, because you have an accountability factor. You have someone that you're working with one-on-one. You can shake that person's hand. We're bringing back, I think, some of that old-fashioned customer service that we never really lacked. We had. But it's something that .com can't provide.
Well, and you know, I think too, one of the key things to me is that, and I always used to, that was one of the selling points, I think, was the fact that if you had a problem, you had someone to call. And when it's a .com, you don't have anybody to call, and so you have no help.
Exactly. You have no recourse. And I'll never forget a telephone call that I took September 11. And the phone rang, I picked it up, and it was a girl on the other end of the phone who was stranded in Paris, crying. And she said, I'm calling you because I worked with your agency for years, but this trip, I booked it on the internet, and is there anything you can do to help me? And so, you know, of course, we tried our best to help her out, and she came back to us. So, you know, that's just one of many stories.
Well, and you have the contacts that you can pick up the phone and call. I remember I had one incident where I had a young man that was on a tour that we had booked, and it was a group tour that we did for a school, and he had fallen and hurt himself seriously and was in a hospital over in Switzerland. And so the challenge then was, because the group had to come back home, and so it was a challenge on how do I get him home. And of course we were working with Delta at the time, and I called Delta, and Delta took care of the whole thing. I went over, met him. They had made arrangements for me to get him from the hospital, the whole thing. But I was able to make that phone call and get that to happen. So, and it does make a difference. It really does.
It absolutely does,
Yeah.
Dick. And we have a marvelous network of travel professionals that we work with worldwide. So if I'm calling the Luna Hotel in Rome, I know the general manager personally.
Absolutely. Yes.
So when I pick up that phone, he knows who Janet is, and he works with me to make sure that my clients are taken care of. We have offices all over the world. And so, for example, with that young man who was ill, there have been, unfortunately, times when people do become ill abroad, and our on-site offices are there to help assist.
So that means a lot. I think that customer service, as you said, it's always been important, but I think now people realize how much more important
It's more
it is,
important
because
than ever.
The internet is a very impersonal vehicle, and it's certainly, you can access a lot of things, but it's very impersonal. So you have some favorite places that you like to travel, like to visit?
Oh my goodness, I do. And you know, I've been very blessed to be in this business. It's been a wonderful career for me. But of course, Italy. Italy will always be in my heart. I love it there, and I travel to Italy every May. I go during the off season,
really? Yeah.
and we'll go and do a lot of site inspections of hotels. I feel that that's very, very important to do. New Zealand. I love New Zealand. It's old-fashioned. It's beautiful. The people are lovely. It's just a great, great place. It's like Ireland on steroids. It's so green there. Just amazing.
Good way to put it.
and Africa, South Africa, East Africa, just amazing with the diversity of wildlife there. And if anyone can take the time to travel to Africa, it's a life-changing experience.
I got to do that, a couple trips down there, and I found it actually very surprising and very enjoyable. The demographics of travelers, has that changed? What do you, much as far as who's traveling now?
Well, it has changed, and I think once again September 11 had a lot to do with that. I think that made all of us kind of take a pause and look into ourselves and say, what's important to us? And I think it's family and friends. And traveling with family, friends, multi-generational travel now is big, very, very popular. So you have grandma and grandpa traveling with their children and their children's children. And there are companies out there that I work with like Tauk and Walt Disney, who specialize in these amazing escorted tours that are really put together programs for these multi-generational families. Adventure travel is another big, very popular way to travel. I had mentioned safari. When I was in New Zealand a couple of months ago, I hiked 2 hours with a naturalist guide to find a little baby kiwi. But it was such a wonderful experience. And so there's a lot of people traveling to places like New Zealand, Africa, Costa Rica for that adventure eco travel, if you will.
Those are probably some of the hot spots. Are there any particular spots that are in 2013 that are going to be, you think are going to be hot destinations for folks?
Well, I've been getting a lot of calls recently on China.
Really?
I think China, it's in the news a lot lately, and I think that there is a lot of interest in travel to China.
Fascinating place to see.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
I also think that cruises are still popular, more popular now than they ever have been.
Which I love.
And it's great because, you know, you agree, you don't have to pack and unpack. So
it's the
it
greatest,
makes it
most relaxing way to travel in the world.
Keep it simple. And for a lot of families, they're realizing that, golly, that's the way I can go with my children. We don't have to pack and unpack. They speak English on the ship. And it's a great way to see a lot of diverse countries in a short amount of time.
Absolutely. Plus, those ships now are like a city within themselves.
They are.
The great thing is that your family, once they're on there, they can entertain themselves in a lot of ways while you don't have to be constantly worried about keeping them occupied.
It's like a city at sea.
Yeah.
And the cruise ships are not only going to the Caribbean anymore, they're going to the Mediterranean, which is such a big draw for families during the summer. Alaska cruises during the summer, and also up to Northern Europe and the Baltic.
Yes.
Very popular during the summer months.
I'm a great cruise person. I love cruises. Travel insurance, you know, that's a question that we hear a lot about, or a lot of people ask about. Tell about travel insurance. What is it something you really need, you should do, and you should look into?
I'm a big believer in travel insurance. It is an additional expense in addition to the cost of the trip, but it also protects your investment. And I think that more and more people are taking heed of that and are purchasing the trip insurance. And also, too, I think a third-party insurance provider is the best way to go. And I say that because the cruise lines, the tour companies, they offer insurance, but you know, that insurer is really protecting, I think, them. And you know, we want to protect you, the client.
That's the important
thing.
thing.
And so there are some very, very fine companies out there that that I work with on a regular basis who can do that. And whenever I travel, especially traveling outside of the country, I will
very important.
always
Absolutely.
get the trip
Absolutely.
insurance.
Let me talk before we have to finish up here, because I could go on for a long time. Christmas, probably too late to really plan much for any Christmas travel at this point. How far out should people start to think about if they're going to do a trip in general, but especially at Christmas? Now I would
Yes.
imagine it's a little late to.
Well, honestly, I'm planning into next Christmas.
Yeah.
Because I think what has happened, people have learned that you do have to plan ahead. That being said, if you're flexible, there are some wonderful places that you can still get to at Christmas. It may not be the Caribbean, but Florida, California, Arizona, Europe still. So there are many places that you can still get to this Christmas. But you just have to be a bit flexible with your dates and maybe think out of the box a bit when it comes to the destination.
Yeah. How long, I guess in general, if people are going to plan a big trip, when do they really need to start thinking about that? Because I think some people don't realize how much goes into that, plus the fact that trips do fill up pretty quickly. So what do you recommend on that?
Well, again, if it's going to be during a holiday time, peak season, spring break, Easter vacation, the Christmas and Hanukkah holiday, you really need to plan 6 months or more in advance, because that's when you're going to get the best rate, and you're going to be able to pick and choose a little bit more than if you wait until the last minute. You know, that being said, we're talking about the holidays, and a wonderful way of giving a present is the gift of travel.
Yes.
And people sometimes don't really think of that because it's nothing that you can put in that little box over there. It's an intangible experience and something that is really one of a kind. And after the holidays, people kind of get in the doldrums, it's cold, it's snowing. And after the holidays, you want to have something to look forward to. And, that's a great way to put something under the tree. That's a gift.
And it also is a gift that will keep on giving, as they say, for years to come because of the memories of that travel. How good it is to see you, and how delightful to know you're still there and still working hard and doing well. Congratulations again on your recognition with Travel and Leisure.
Thank you.
Hope we see you again.
I hope so too.
Give my best to all the folks that.
I will.
The Provident Travel.
I will. I
Thank
certainly
you.
will. Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas
to everybody.
Yeah, thank you very much, Janet. Thanks so much.
You're
And we
welcome.
also want to thank Father Rufino and Frank Farmer Loomis for joining us on this edition of Anderson Speaks. Our thanks too to our producer and our director, our producer Nikki Bishop, our director Andy Crozier. A special thanks to you for making time in your day to join us for Anderson Speaks. I'm Dick Murgatroyd, and on behalf of all of us here at Anderson Community Television, as we celebrate this very special season with family and friends, may it be filled with wonderful memories and many blessings, and may the gifts of love, peace, and happiness be yours throughout the coming year. We'll see ya. Merry Christmas.